So, what's been happening in the world of boxing? First and foremost, I'm going to address the whole Johnny Tapia, Paul Williams situations. Johnny Tapia was a very tough, spirited fighter. I remember watching him in the 90s. And, very tough, courageous fighter. But a very troubled individual. You understand? And this is a messed up, corrupt, evil world that we live in. That's just the truth. But a lot of people live in a very small bubble where they never get exposed to the true nature of this world. You understand? The true evil and madness that actually goes on in this world. Unfortunately for Johnny Tapia, he was not one of those people that was protected in a little bubble. He experienced a lot of the more evil and, horrible parts of this life and parts of this world firsthand. You understand? And it pretty much haunted him for all of his life. You get what I'm saying? It pretty much haunted him and troubled him for his whole life. You get what I'm saying? So all I can say to him is that, about him is that I hope he can find the peace in death that he couldn't find in life. You know what I mean? So rest in peace, Johnny Tapia. And Paul Williams, well, Paul Williams still has his life. You get me? He's still alive. The early prognosis is that he will never walk again. Apparently his spinal cord was severed. So at the very least, you can probably expect him to never box again. And he'll probably never walk again. Although the human spirit is a very powerful thing. And there are many examples of people out there who were told they would never walk again, but they did end up walking again. You understand? And in boxing, the one example that springs to mind is Vinny Pazienza. He was at least told he would never box again. He was a fighter back in the 90s and fought Roberto Duran and Roy Jones and, a few other people. But he basically broke his neck and he was told he would never fight again. He may never, there was a chance he might even be paralyzed, you get me, from the injury. But not only was he not paralyzed, but he did fight again. I think he was back in the gym after coming out of the hospital, after having an operation. The guy was back in the gym the next week or something crazy, training with the harness on his head. Yeah, they have, when people break their neck, they sometimes get a harness bolted into their skull, which holds their neck in place so they don't turn it, you know what I mean? This guy, he didn't listen to the doctors and he was determined to make it back into a boxing ring, and that's what he did. So who am I to doubt Paul Williams? Maybe he'll be able to do the same. However doubtful it looks, Vinny Pazienza did not have a complete, breakage of his spine like apparently Paul Williams had. The spine and the spinal cord apparently was completely severed from what I've read. So it's not looking good for him right now. You know what I mean? All I can say is, as a boxing fan, I had a lot of respect for Paul Williams as a fighter. You understand? Because he was one of the very few fighters left in boxing who was a true warrior and was willing to fight anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place. You understand? And he was, he never got the big paydays. And that's what really got to me, because I like to see fighters get rewarded for their hard work. You understand? I like to see justice in boxing. You understand? I like to see justice. The fighters who deserve the paydays, I like to see them get the paydays. You know what I mean? The guys who are really willing to fight anyone and always give it 100%, I like to see those guys get rewarded. And that's what Paul Williams was as a fighter. I know I'm speaking about him in the past tense. He's not dead, but I'm just speaking about him in the past tense because he's no longer boxing. You know what I'm saying? For the foreseeable future. So he was one of them guys, you get me? He was a warrior, was willing to fight anyone. And especially when he was at welterweight, he was the most ducked and feared fighter in boxing for a long time. The two supposed pound for pound best, Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, both ducked him shamelessly. It's funny that no one ever seems to talk about that. You get me? These guys were being called the best pound for pound fighters, but both of them were running for dear life from Paul Williams when he was in his prime. You get me? When he was beating guys like Margarito, prime Margarito. You know what I mean? And he never got the paydays that he deserved, you get me? Because the supposed best fighters was avoiding him. So he had to move up in weight. He fought Sergio Martinez, who ironically was another guy who Pacquiao and Mayweather was ducking. You get me? They was ducking Martinez. Martinez was calling them guys out for a long time. Neither of them wanted to step up to the plate. And Williams did step up to the plate and he fought a prime Martinez. I think Martinez is a little bit on the slide now. You get me? Should Pacquiao or Mayweather decide to call him out? For me personally, his last few performances have not been impressive. I don't think he's as good as he was a few years ago, like when Williams fought him and when he was beating guys like the Ghost and people like that. You get me, Pavlik? So, but either way, I'm sidestepping anyway. But Paul Williams was a true warrior. And he was willing to fight anyone, anytime, any place, anywhere. He never got the paydays that he deserved out of boxing. He was about to fight Saul Alvarez, which would have been one of his better paydays. Although, I think Williams was on the downside of his career anyway. He was displaying punch drunk syndrome. You get me? Like he was slurring his speech and all these type of things. So I'm not really sure how many top level fights he had left in him. But at the very least, I would have liked to see him at least get some nice paydays at the end of his career. Do you get what I'm saying? Because he really deserved it. He really deserved it. And fans like us need to appreciate fighters like him who are willing to put it on the line and fight anyone in their prime, at their best. He didn't care. He was such a warrior, man of such courage and heart. I mean, even after he got knocked out so embarrassingly in a second fight with Sergio Martinez, he was still talking about getting back in the ring and fighting Martinez again. You understand? That's his mentality. The guy was a fearless guy. And yeah, man, hats off to Paul Williams as a fighter, man. And I hope that he carries that fighting spirit into what looks like the biggest challenge of his life so far, bigger than any challenge he's faced in a boxing ring. So, I wish Paul Williams all the best, man, as a boxing fan. So yeah, what else has been going on in the boxing apart from this? First and foremost, yeah, the Carl Froch fight. I wanted to address that because I never got to do a post fight. I've been away for a few days, so I didn't get a chance to make a proper post fight video about the Froch and Lucian Bute fight. Me personally, I think that most people like me overestimated Lucian Bute because you never really know how good a fighter is until he fights at the top level. Yeah, it's very difficult to know. Because there are certain factors which are not always apparent, not always obvious. One of them being reflexes. You understand? Lucian Bute has always been a guy with speed. He's got good hand speed, good foot speed, but he's never had to sharpen his reflexes that much against the caliber of opposition he's been fighting. Whereas Carl Froch has. He's had to sharpen his reflexes as sharp as they can possibly be. Carl Froch is not a guy who is very quick. You know what I mean? He's not a very fast fighter. He doesn't have the greatest hand speed or foot speed or anything like that. But there's a difference between hand speed and reflexes. Vitaly Klitschko don't have a lot of speed, but he has, for his age and his size, good reflexes. You understand? His hands don't seem to move very fast, but they always seem to land on the opponent's chin at the right time. You get what I'm saying? Because it's all to do with timing and reflexes and all that kind of stuff. And Carl Froch might not be the fastest fighter, but he showed against Lucian Bute that his reflexes was a hell of a lot sharper than Bute's reflexes was. Bute came into the fight, from the first round, I was surprised by the way the fight looked. Because the fight looked the opposite of what I expected. I expected Lucian Bute to be boxing on the back foot, for Carl Froch to be coming forward and, getting touched with the jab and basically being frustrated by Bute. That's what I expected. You get what I'm saying? But it was the opposite. Carl Froch was fighting on the back foot. And I know we've seen Carl Froch fight on the back foot a lot of times before. He did it against Glenn Johnson. He did it against Arthur Abraham. But I didn't think it would work against someone as tall and rangy and, and quick as Lucian Bute. I didn't think it would work. Them back foot tactics would work against him. You know what I mean? Because every other time that Carl Froch has come up against a slick boxer, he's had trouble. Now, Lucian Bute was never particularly slick, but I thought he was slick enough to probably get a decision win over Carl Froch. You know what I mean? I thought if Carl Froch was going to win the fight, he'd win the fight by a knockout late. So the fight was completely the opposite of what I expected, because what actually turned out to be the case was Carl Froch was outboxing Lucian Bute. That's what was happening. Carl Froch turned counterpuncher in this fight. From the second round on, he was drawing Lucian Bute in and catching him with counterpunches, sharp, hard counterpunches. And Lucian Bute, like an amateur, was just walking into counterpunch after counterpunch. And the first time he got hit clean, he was hurt. You know what I mean? I could tell from the look on his face and his body language. The first time this guy got hit clean, he looked flustered. He didn't look comfortable or anything. You know, and I just really think he was contemptuous of Carl Froch. He really didn't have no respect for Carl Froch before the fight. And he went in there thinking this is going to be easy. You should always go into a boxing ring relaxed physically, right? And, you know, to a certain degree, relaxed mentally, but also alert. You understand? You need to be alert and you need to be tactically aware. Lucian Bute seemed, you know, relaxed physically, but too relaxed. You understand what I'm saying? Too relaxed mentally to the point where he was lackadaisical. You understand? He was just walking forward into these counters, you know, throwing punches and getting countered, throwing more punches and getting countered. It was ridiculous, actually. You know, he looked so amateurish in there. I couldn't believe that he was falling for Carl Froch's traps like that. It was crazy. And I'm not taking nothing away from Carl Froch. Do you get what I'm saying? I just didn't think that Lucian Bute would be so easily outboxed as he was. You get what I'm saying? I was really surprised by that. So I definitely overestimated Lucian Bute before the fight. You get me? I thought that he was smarter and quicker than he actually was, you know, in terms of reflexes and stuff like that, you know, and more tactically aware. But he just fought a terrible tactical fight. He couldn't touch Carl Froch with the jab, so he seemed to get frustrated and try to walk Carl Froch down, and he just walked right into Carl Froch's power. Froch's counter punches were sharp, they was accurate, they was well placed, and you know, Carl Froch literally fought a perfect fight. And I knew, like I said, from the second round that Carl Froch was going to win the fight, because the first clean shot he hit Bute with, he hurt him. Yeah, and he was outboxing Bute. So in my mind, I was thinking, okay, if he can't outbox Carl Froch, he definitely can't outfight him. So he's gonna lose this fight. You understand what I'm saying? I thought there's no way he's gonna lose. There's no way he's gonna beat Carl Froch in a brawl. So if he's getting outboxed, then any chance he had of winning this fight has just gone out the window, because Froch is outboxing him. So yeah, man, that's how I saw the fight going down. And you know, I give Carl Froch all the respect. I know a few Carl Froch fans was upset with me, and they said that I don't give Carl Froch no respect, this, that, and the other, because I picked against him and all this business. Look, for those people who have followed my channel for a long time, you will know that this is the first time I've got a Carl Froch prediction wrong. I predicted Carl Froch against Mikhail Kessler. I predicted him against Arthur Abraham. I predicted him against Glenn Johnson, and I predicted him against Andre Ward. I got all of those predictions correct. Not only did I get all those predictions correct, I got the method of victory or defeat correct. I predicted that he'd lose to Kessler a 12-round decision. I predicted that he'd beat Arthur Abraham and Glenn Johnson over a 12-round decision, and I predicted that he'd lose to Andre Ward over a 12-round decision. Yeah, I've been following Carl Froch for a long time. I've seen loads of his fights, even before the Super 6, you get me, all the way back when he was an unknown guy mouthing off about Joe Calzaghe years and years ago. So I know all about Carl Froch. I know what he can do. I know what he's capable of. Yeah. I do not believe I underestimated Carl Froch. You get me? That's not the issue here. I overestimated Lucian Bute. You understand? And I assumed he could do certain things that he really couldn't do. You understand? I gave him the benefit of the doubt, even though he had a pretty weak resume. He hadn't really fought nobody at top level. I made certain assumptions, you understand, that he would be able to deal with a guy like Carl Froch in terms of he'd be able to outbox him. Don't get it twisted. I still gave Froch a chance in the fight to win the fight by a late knockout. Yeah, if he could put the pressure on Bute like Andrade did, you know, and maybe take him out late. But I didn't underestimate Froch. I know what Froch can do. Like I said, I predicted all his previous fights correct. You understand? So I obviously know a little bit about Carl Froch, or else I wouldn't have predicted those, got those predictions right. So, yeah, man, I don't have anything but respect for Carl Froch. You get me? He's a true warrior. He's a true fighter. He always fights the best. I got nothing but respect for him. You understand? So if I pick against him, or if I criticize him in any way, I don't hate him. You understand? I'm just telling you how I feel. Do you get what I'm saying? Obviously, I got this one wrong. Yeah, hats off to Carl Froch, hats off to all his fans, you know what I mean? But I just feel like I really overestimated Lucian Bute and thought he was better than he really was. You know what I mean? And that can happen, you understand? People do get predictions wrong, and a lot of people were flaming me for getting it wrong. You get me? Yeah, I'm going to get predictions wrong from time to time. No one can tell, no one can, predict the future. You get me? Boxing is an unpredictable sport. Upsets happen. Do you get what I'm saying? I mean, Roger Mayweather, before the Alvarez and Shane Mosley fight, he was telling everyone that Mosley was going to knock Alvarez out. You get what I'm saying? And Mayweather, I mean, say what you like about Mayweather, but, a lot of people hold his opinion in high regard in terms of boxing. Mayweather, Roger Mayweather's a guy who likes to go around telling everyone they don't know shit about boxing. But yeah, he predicted that, washed up Shane Mosley would somehow knock out Saul Alvarez. You get me? Which I personally didn't see. I predicted Alvarez to win that fight pretty comfortable. But obviously he felt because Alvarez had never been tested, similar to Lucian Bute, he felt that, Shane Mosley would be the guy to expose him, to expose the fact that he hasn't honed his reflexes and his skills against the top fighters. You understand? So he maybe became, maybe he was, in a full sense of security like Lucian Bute was. Going back to the Bute-Froch fight, like I said, Froch's reflexes were so sharp because they had to be. Fighting in the Super 6 against guys like Andre Ward and Andre Durrell and people like that, he had to have ridiculously sharp reflexes to make up for the fact that he couldn't compete with those other guys in terms of hand speed. So he had to have reflexes. You understand? He had to he couldn't compete with those guys in terms of hand speed or skills, you know what I mean? So he had to sharpen his reflexes as sharp as possible. After every single fight in the Super 6 was hard. So he was going back into the training camp and he was thinking, right, I got to take my game to the next level. Every single time he had to push and push and push because he knew each fight in that Super 6 tournament was going to be hell. You understand? Whereas Lucian Bute has not had to push himself like that. So you know what I'm saying? Most of his fights have been pretty easy victories. You understand? He's been fighting, B and C level competition. He hasn't really had to push himself to the next level, and it really showed in his fight against Carl Froch. He had so many holes in his game, it weren't even funny. And I think in a rematch, Carl Froch should just beat him again. That's my personal belief. You get me? Because Carl Froch was outboxing him. If Carl Froch can outbox him, right, Lucian Bute is in trouble, right? Also, I think Lucian Bute does not have the greatest chin. Yeah. I never really thought he had a great chin before the fight, but I didn't think he'd get hit as often as he did. I thought he'd be able to avoid all them punches, you know what I mean? Or most of them punches. And I know people are, saying, oh, don't degrade Bute. You're trying to take away from Froch's victory. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just telling you the truth because if you look at Froch's other opponents, people like Pascal and, Mikkel Kessler, Glenn Johnson, Arthur Abraham, all them guys were able to take the shots that Bute couldn't take. And I know obviously in the end, Bute ended up taking a hell of a lot more punches than those guys took. The fact is, the first time Bute got hit clean, the guy was hurt. Yeah? Whereas those other guys, they was able to take, those initial hard shots from Froch and come back or recover and come back. Bute was not able to do that. Yeah? I just don't think his chin is that good. His powers of recovery are not up to scratch compared to a lot of other guys Carl Froch has fought. You understand? And like I said, you never know what's going to happen with one of these fighters. You never really know how good they are until they step in with the top competition. They can look great against the B-level guys. Until they step in with the A-level guys, you never really know. And that's why, you can never assume in boxing. You can never make assumptions. You can never say, okay, Bute don't need to fight any of the Super 6 guys, right? we know he would beat Froch. We know he would beat this one. We know he would beat that one. So there's no point in him fighting him. He might as well just fight Ward. There's no point in him fighting Froch, right? People always do that with their favorite fighters when their favorite fighters, might duck this guy or duck that guy. Oh, he don't need to fight that guy. He'd beat him anyway. No, you never know what's going to happen unless they get in the ring. Yeah, we all have opinions, but opinions don't mean shit in boxing. The only thing that matters in boxing is what takes place in the ring. Yeah, because none of us are 100% accurate when it comes to boxing predictions. All of us get boxing predictions wrong. All of us get boxing predictions wrong in fights that we were certain would go one way, but they actually went the other way. You know what I mean? Boxing is an unpredictable sport, and that's the beauty of it. You understand? So, that's why it's so important in boxing for the best to fight the best. Yeah, because you never know. You never know until they get in the ring and, swing it out. That's when you find out who actually is the best. You get me? And a lot of the times you're going to find upsets happening where you didn't expect an upset to happen. So, like I said, not taking nothing away from Carl Froch, but I know him inside out as a fighter, I feel. And I just overestimated Lucian Bute. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. And it turns out he wasn't as good as I expected, as I thought he was. I mean, I was never a massive Bute fan or anything like that. I wasn't never rated him that highly. I always thought that Andre Ward would beat him. But, like I say, I did not think that Carl Froch would beat him. But anyway, let me not long this out. Let's talk about some other boxing news. First and foremost, more news on Andre Berto this time, a different Andre Berto. But actually, before I talk about Andre Berto, let me just talk about Froch Ward, if there's ever a rematch. I think Ward would win a rematch against Froch again. Yeah, same like the first fight. I didn't see anything in the first fight to suggest to me that Froch could beat Ward in a rematch. Yeah, Ward is not going to walk forward with his hands down onto Froch's counter punches the way that Lucian Bute did. He's just not going to do that. Yeah. Froch tried those tactics against Ward. It didn't work. Ward was too savvy. He knew what Froch was trying to do. He knew Froch was trying to lure him in to those punches, and he didn't take the bait. He would stay. If you watch the first fight, Andre Ward stayed on the outside, away from Froch's range in the early rounds. Yeah, Froch couldn't get any punches off because Andre Ward had faster feet, so he'd be able to move away whenever Froch made a move. Then when Froch made a move, he'd slip or block the punch and land a jab or a left hook. Right, and then when the fight got to the inside, he'd rush on the inside, he'd get right on the inside of Froch's reach. Yeah, then he'd start pushing Froch back because he had better balance, better leg strength. He'd push Froch back with his slightly lower center of gravity. He'd keep his hands up on the inside, push Froch back, and then go to work. You get me? With short punches on the inside because he has the shorter reach. You get me? So he was able to get the punches off on the inside. Very good defense, very good balance. It was just not, tactically, he fought such a good fight from a tactical point of view and from a technique point of view against Froch in the first fight. I mean, anything is possible in boxing. You get me? Froch could land a shot here or there, but I can't see him ever beating Andre Ward. I just can't see it. Andre Ward's got too many facets to his game. You understand? He can fight on the inside, he can fight on the outside. He's very smart, he's tough, he's physically strong. His technique is impeccable. His balance is tremendous. Very quick on his hands, with his hands and feet. I just can't see Froch beating him. And if, like I said, anything is possible. He always has that puncher's chance. What I do think his power is slightly overrated. I know it sounds kind of crazy saying it since he just blasted away. Lucian Bute. But then again, he never managed to drop Mikhail Kessler. But look what Alan Green did to Mikhail Kessler. You know what I mean? So I think, Froch has got decent power, but I don't think he's a crazy massive puncher. I just think his power looked greater than it was against Lucian Bute, who was a bit fragile around the chin. That's just my personal opinion. I'm sure many Froch fans will disagree, if not all Froch fans will disagree with that statement. But hey, there you go. So yeah, me personally, I didn't see anything in that first fight to suggest that he could beat Andre Ward, even if he fights like he did against Bute, because he pretty much did fight as he did against Bute in the first fight with Ward anyway. So I personally can't see it, but you never know. We'll just see what happens in the future. I'd like to see Froch actually fight Jean Pascal again, because the first fight was a tremendous fight. You know what I mean? So Pascal fight, I'd like to see a rematch with Pascal. I know he's interested in fighting Kessler. I don't know. Am I the only one thinking Kessler is looking more and more over the hill with each fight? I know it was a great punch that he knocked Alan Green out with, but I don't know, man. I think maybe that first Froch fight took a bit out of him. You know what I mean? I know he was out the ring for a while when he, came out the Super 6 and everything. I don't know, man. I don't know. I've not really been convinced by Kessler's last two performances. He hasn't really seemed that great to me. So I wonder whether, the Froch fight was his last big performance. I don't know. You never know, man. But I know he's probably going to fight Kessler next. And then maybe if he beats Kessler, he'll look at Ward. If Ward gets past Chad Dawson, which is no easy fight, believe you me. So yeah, man, we'll see what happens with Carl Froch there. But like I said, man, I got nothing but respect for Carl Froch. I've been accused of not having no respect for him. I got tremendous respect for him. You know what I mean? He's a true fighter. He's willing to fight anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place. So big up Carl Froch. 100% respect for him. Boxing needs more people like Carl Froch. It needs more fighters like that. You get what I'm saying? That's willing to fight anyone. They don't give a fuck about, you know what I mean? Don't give a fuck about fighting abroad. Don't give a fuck about, rematching people that beat him. You understand? Like, he just wants to do everything, fight the best all the time. He's not interested in warm-up fights. He's not interested in, none of that bullshit. He's active. He fights a lot. As a prize fighter, you can't ask for no more than someone like Carl Froch. You get what I'm saying? So I got 100 million% respect for the guy. You get what I'm saying? Nothing but respect. So don't get it confused. All right, let's talk about the Andre Berto news now. Andre Berto, I'm reading this article from BoxingScene.com. It says here, last Thursday it was revealed on BoxingScene.com that Andre Berto failed one of his random drug tests that were administered by the VADA, which is the Voluntary Anti-Drug Association. Berto's A and B samples were confirmed to have had traces of nandrolone. Berto is preparing for a welterweight rematch with Victor Ortiz on June 23rd at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, California. Both fighters had agreed to take part in a random drug testing protocol. Sources have informed me that analysis of Berto's positive test results for how'd you say that shit? Nandrosterone. I guess that's how you say it. Nandrosterone. Berto's positive test results for nandrosterone, which is a metabolic byproduct of nandrolone, revealed ultra trace amounts of nandrolone in the low parts per trillion range and consistent with contamination, not intent. In other words, the amount in his system is so minute that it is highly unlikely that he intentionally ingested nandrolone, but was rather contaminated by food or a supplement. This is excellent news for Team Berto, essentially backing up the theory explained in my article. Andre Berto tests positive for the molecule of the month, nandrolone. Okay. Does this mean Berto Ortiz too could be saved? Well, at the moment, it looks like Berto Ortiz is not saved. It might happen down the line, but for that date, I'm sure it's definitely not happening for that date. But what I can say is, based on this information, it's looking like Andre Berto is actually innocent and that he hasn't been juicing. In my last video, I said I'm not going to go in on Andre Berto right now until all the facts come out. You get me? Because I had a feeling that his situation was different than Lamont Peterson's situation, and it's turned out to be the case. And if this information is accurate, it looks like Andre Berto is actually not guilty, because from what I've read about nandrolone, it is a steroid which stays in your system for a very long time, extremely long time. And we're talking about 6 months, 10 months, an extremely long time. So when Andre Berto tested positive, they found extremely low, tiny trace amounts of nandrolone, which would mean that if he's taken nandrolone deliberately, then he would have had to have taken it months and months and months ago, right? The problem with that is Andre Berto was tested by the VADA before the first scheduled fight, the first scheduled rematch date with Ortiz just a few months ago. Yeah, just 2 or 3 months ago, whenever the first scheduled rematch was supposed to be, he was tested before that fight, and his tests came out clean. You understand? So if he had taken nandrolone after that, he would have had a much higher percentage found in his test this time around. Do you get what I'm saying? So it is extremely unlikely that he has taken, you know, nandrolone deliberately, because the amounts that are found in his blood are just too small. For him to have taken nandrolone in the past few months, he would have a lot more in his bloodstream than has been found. Do you understand? So like the article is saying, most likely he's taken some type of contaminated supplement or food. You get me? And it's not really his fault. But again, the case goes on, you get me? And we'll have to see if more details come out. But at the moment, I think people was a bit too quick to jump and judge Andre Berto. You know what I mean? I think that it's looking like he's actually just an innocent, you know what I mean, person. But what I will say is the VADA are doing a very good job. You know what I mean? They're actually catching people. You get what I'm saying? So for me personally, they're the only testing organization that I actually trust, because they're catching people. You know what I mean? They're very thorough. They're finding the tiniest trace amounts of, you know, whatever. So they're the only ones that I particularly trust, because as far as I'm aware, they're not associated to any promoter. They're not associated with any promoter or associated with any fighter. They don't have any close links to anyone in the boxing, you know, world, as far as I know. So, me personally, I would trust them because they're neutral. They don't have any associations with any big fighters or promoters or anyone like that, or any countries or whatever. So, you know, me personally, I trust them more than any of the other organizations. And I'd like to see the VADA, since they're getting these results, I'd like to see them testing in all the big fights. You get me? I'd like to see them do the testing for all the big fights, man. So yeah, that's Andre Berto. Apart from that, what else is there? There's some Chisora news. It looks like the British Border Boxing Control are backing down, and they have withdrawn their threat to automatically terminate the licenses of anyone who participates in the Chisora bill. And basically, the way this seems to have happened is that political pressure from Frank Warren has made them back down, because Frank Warren is going to sue the board, yeah, the British Border Boxing Control, and he's basically encouraging his fighters to sue them as well, because obviously there are fighters who are going to fight on the undercard of Chisora, and he's encouraging them to sue the board. You get what I'm saying? And I know a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but there was a few people online who was questioning whether this fight would go ahead, Chisora, because of all the political, you know, situation with the boxing board threatening Frank Warren and threatening to take licenses away from boxers and all this kind of stuff. I always felt that this fight probably would go ahead, because I know that money talks in boxing. You understand? And Frank Warren is more powerful than the British Border Boxing Control. They're a small organization. Yeah, Frank Warren is a very stubborn person. Like I said in my last boxing news video, this guy's willing to go to court and to go as far as he needs to take it to get his own way. That's the kind of person he is. And he's got money to burn. The British Border Boxing Control does not have money to burn. Yeah, they did not want to take this into a legal situation with Frank Warren, because it could bankrupt them. At the end of the day, the British Border Boxing Control, you know, the guys who are on the board, they have salaries, they have families. You understand? If they get dragged through court and, you know, the British Border Boxing Control goes bust through a number of legal cases, they're going to lose their jobs, they're going to lose their livelihoods, all this kind of stuff. Frank Warren won't, because he's got the money to go through all these legal cases. You understand? So I'm not surprised that the British board are now backing down. You get what I'm saying? I'm not surprised, man, because money talks in boxing, and, you know, the boxing promoters are more powerful than the regulating bodies. You understand? The boxing promoters and a lot of the big fighters, yeah, are more powerful than any of the boxing organizations and any of the, you know, the organizations that regulate boxing. And that is a dangerous thing. Don't get it twisted. I think in this instance, I'm happy the Chisora fight is going ahead, because I think the board overreacted with their punishment of Derek Chisora. So I'm happy the fight is going ahead. But, you know, from a, you know, on a wider note, I think it's a dangerous thing. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, it just shows literally how little power these regulatory bodies have over fighters and powerful promoters. Do you understand? Who are really above the law. Get what I'm saying? Most of these big fighters and these big promoters, they are above the law in boxing. You know, I know there's this whole thing about, you know, doping in boxing and all this kind of stuff. Which fighters are doped up? Believe you me, there are fighters who are on drugs and you'll never find out because they're so big or their promoters so big in boxing. You will never find out that they're on drugs. You know what I mean? Because these people are more powerful than the boxing organizations. You understand? That's just the sport that we're in, unfortunately. That's the sport we follow, man. So this is just another example of how you know, promoters and people like that are more powerful than the people who supposedly regulate boxing. Anyway, what else is going on? Obviously, Canelo's no longer fighting Paul Williams, so he was supposed to fight James Kirtland, which I think would have been a tremendous fight. I would have loved to see him fight James Kirtland. I would have taken Alvarez in that fight, but it would have been a very interesting fight to watch because Kirtland has got a very good work rate. He's very physically strong, comes forward, comes to fight. He's very tough. So I would have been interested to see that one, man. I think it would have been a fun fight. It would have been exciting and interesting while it lasted. But I don't think it would have lasted long. So his other options, since he's not fighting Kirtland, is Erislandy Lara, Austin Trout, or K9 Bundridge. Out of those three, I'd like to see Lara in terms of the fact that Lara's the best out of those three. You get me? In terms of the skills and stuff that he showed. I'd like to see him fight Lara. Trout and Bundridge. Out of Trout and Bundridge, I'd prefer to see Bundridge. I think it'd be more fun. You know what I mean? But either way, any one of them fights is a pretty decent fight. You get me? On paper, Lara and Trout seem to be a bit better than Bundridge, but I wouldn't mind any of them fights. I'm not going to complain too tough. You get me? End of the day, I've always been saying that Alvarez needs to fight the other champions. And so, you know, why not start now? Let's fight one of the other champions. Why not fight Bundridge? You get what I'm saying? You know? So I don't have no problem with that. You know, why not take on one of the champions now and then try to take on Floyd when Floyd comes out of prison? You know what I mean? If Floyd still has the belt, I don't know what's going to happen. Whether they'll let him stay champion for the months that he's in prison or what happens. But, you know, maybe we could have a unification with Floyd when he comes out of prison. If he gets past, you know, one of the other champions or whatever, and maybe has another fight in the meantime, as long as he wins those fights, then we can set up a nice showdown with Floyd. If Floyd wants it, you get me? What else? What other news is there? Dmitry Pirog against Gennady Golovkin is 90% done, apparently. So that's going to be a big fight in the middleweight division. Two undefeated guys, Golovkin and Pirog, two of the best amateurs to come out of the Eastern Bloc, Eastern Europe for a long time. Very interesting fight. Two very good, technically sound fighters. Interesting, man. Interesting. Really like to see that fight. Be very interested to watch that one. Golovkin is a guy who really hasn't been tested yet. You know what I mean? Really hasn't been tested yet. He was a very good amateur, beat a lot of good guys in the amateurs. Is apparently very talented still as a professional, but really hasn't beaten no one of note. So it'd be very interesting to see him fight a guy like Pirog, who does have a little bit of pedigree as a professional. You get me? So, yeah, nice to see what happens there. And then hopefully the winner fights Sergio Martinez. I don't know how realistic that is, because if it was going to happen, wouldn't it have happened already? You know what I mean? Wouldn't it have happened already if it was going to happen? I don't know. But maybe the winner fights Martinez. We'll see. But other than that, is there any other boxing news? Went through Berto, David Hay, Chisora. Oh, yeah, the only other little bit of boxing news is that apparently the Klitschko's manager, Bert Bonte, has come out and basically left the door open for a Hay fight, right? Because he basically has come out all these months after the incident with Hay and Chisora and basically said that David Hay was not in the wrong. You know what I mean? That he didn't do no wrong. He was just defending himself against Derek Chisora, who was out of control the whole weekend. So why would he say something like that all these months later unless he was actually leaving the door open for David Hay to fight a Klitschko? Because I think that's what he was doing. I don't think he wants Hay fighting... I don't think he wants the Klitschko fighting Chisora again. But I think he is leaving the door open for Klitschko to fight Hay. And, you know, on Chisora, I'd actually like to see Chisora fight Vitaly Klitschko again. Maybe not straight away, but a couple fights down the line, I'd like to see it. If Chisora can beat David Haye, and if he can get maybe 1 or 2 victories, more victories under his belt, I'd like to see a rematch with Vitaly. And I tell you this, I don't think that Vitaly's manager will ever be keen on a rematch with Derek Chisora, because even though Derek Chisora lost the fight very clearly on the cards, he pushed Vitaly so hard in that fight physically. He hit him with so many body shots. Trust me, Vitaly's 40-year-old body, he was feeling them body shots the day after. Trust me. Trust me. He was feeling them body shots the day after. And, you know, Vitaly won't want that many tough fights like that, you know, for the rest of his career. I mean, apparently this list has come out of potential opponents for Vitaly Klitschko before he retires. And there was no one interested on that list. No, not even one name that was remotely interesting on that list. You understand? So it seems like they want to give Vitaly a few easy fights before he bows out. You know what I mean? Maybe he found that Derek Chisora fight a little bit too rough for his liking. And the thing about the Chisora fight, even though he won it easily on the cards, it was still a very hard physical fight for him. You get me? He had to work. He was under constant pressure. And, you know, Vitaly Klitschko is used to breaking his opponents. You know, the opponents might talk smack and talk shit before the fight and come in with a lot of confidence, but they always leave as broken men. He always manages to break their will in the ring. But that was different with Derek Chisora. He did not manage to break Derek Chisora at all. If anything, Derek Chisora looked more confident at the end of the fight than Vitaly Klitschko did. You get what I'm saying? It was almost like, obviously, you know, the fight wasn't that competitive on the cards, but in terms of the body language, it reminded me of when Lennox Lewis fought Klitschko. Yeah, because after the fight, Klitschko was pissed off that it ended, you know, and Lewis was kind of relieved that it ended. Well, this was kind of like the opposite, because now Vitaly's in the same position that Lewis was in. He's an old man, you know, coming to the end of his career. You get me? He's not as energetic and, you know, youthful as he used to be. And he's in there with a young lion who really pushed him hard. And at the end of the fight, Vitaly looked relieved that that fight was over. You know what I mean? He looked relieved, man. I mean, if that was a 15-round fight, you never know what would have happened. You get me? Derek Chisora seemed pissed off that the fight happened, you know, fight ended when it did. You get what I'm saying? So down the line, if Chisora can beat Haye, I'd like to see him fight Vitaly Klitschko again. You know what I mean? I'd even like to see him fight Vladimir, although I get the feeling that Vladimir might deal with Chisora a bit easier than Vitaly did. You get me? Because Vladimir tends to grab you and hold you and stuff like that. So it's more difficult to get your body shots off against a guy like Vladimir. Although Chisora is very physically strong, I think Vladimir is even more physically strong. You get what I'm saying? So, but we'll see if those fights ever happen. You know, obviously Derek Chisora's got to fight David Haye. And that's, for me, it's almost a 50-50 fight. I really don't know what's going to happen in that fight. You get me? I'm still deliberating in my head which way I think that fight's going to go. Because there's a lot of unanswered questions still about David Haye for me as a heavyweight. You know what I mean? And a lot of unanswered questions in a certain sense about Derek Chisora. I know he's taken the punches so far that he's been hit with in his career, but has he faced a guy that can hit like David Haye? Has he faced a guy that's as explosive with his punches as David Haye? I know Vitaly Klitschko's a decent puncher, but he's not really explosive. You know what I mean? His punches are not going to surprise you most of the time. David Haye's punches do surprise you. You get me? He can leap halfway across the ring and catch you with that right hand. So it's going to be an interesting one. And that's the fight I'm really looking forward to in boxing more than anything right now. It's still the Haye Chisora fight. I'm really looking forward to that. We'll see who Canelo ends up picking. Because, you know, I think Canelo, I like Canelo, man. I like his, don't get it twisted. I've always been a skeptic of Canelo. The first time I saw Canelo, I thought, this guy's a hype job. This guy's rubbish. This guy's going nowhere. But fight by fight, Canelo is improving and showing me more and more and more. And I wouldn't say I'm a believer in Canelo. I'm not a believer, but I think he has ability there. You know what I mean? I've been impressed, especially in his last fight against Mosley. Even though it was a completely washed up and shot Shane Mosley, I was impressed by how tight his defense was. I've always been impressed by his composure, his jab, you know, his counter-punching ability. He's coming along nicely. You get me? My issue with Canelo has always been the fact that he's got a belt. Yeah, I've got no problem with them giving him washed up champions and all these kind of things, because at the end of the day, you have to put a fighter on a learning curve that is not too steep. Yeah, you have to put them on a learning curve where they can learn just enough and get just enough of a test at the right stages in their career. You don't want to throw them in the deep end too early, because that can be disastrous, you know, and that can ruin them psychologically. So you get what I'm saying? So you want to give them the correct learning curve. So in terms of the way they're managing him, it's perfect. You know what I mean? It reminds me a lot of Mike Tyson, the way Mike Tyson was managed. He had a lot of fights at a young age. He fought a lot of bums. He fought washed up champions, but they managed him perfectly to the point where when he eventually did challenge a legit fighter in the heavyweight division, he was peaking at the right time. Do you understand? He'd learned the right amount. He'd had enough fights. He'd fought enough in bigger venues, and he got used to the media and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, he'd been 10 rounds and all that. He'd been a distance, so he tested out his stamina. He had confidence in his stamina. He had confidence in his ability in different situations. And the way they managed Mike Tyson was just perfect. You get me? Early in his career, perfect management. And it's very similar with Canelo. Like I said, the only issue I've had with him is the fact that he's got a belt. Because if you've got a belt, as far as I'm concerned, you're obligated to fight the best. And Canelo has not been fighting the best up until now. You get what I'm saying? So that's been my only issue. But now it looks like, hopefully, I mean, the Paul Williams was a step in the right direction. You get me? If he would have fought Paul Williams. I know Paul Williams is slightly over the hill himself, but it was definitely Paul Williams definitely would have been a better test than Shane Mosley. You know what I mean? So who's he going to fight instead? You get me? We'll wait and see. But it's very intriguing. You know what I mean? It's very intriguing. Powerful fighter. Canelo Alvarez, very powerful fighter. I like punchers, you know what I mean? I've always been a guy, I like to watch big punchers, guys who let their hands go and throw big shots. It's entertaining, you get what I'm saying? That's why I always was a big, follower of Mike Tyson throughout his career, because I just love his style, you get me? The guy would just give you excitement each and every time, win or lose. You know what I mean? So I was always big on guys like Mike Tyson and Prince Nassim and, Tommy Hearns, Gerald McClellan, all those big punching guys, who always came to, let their hands go, Roy Jones Jr., all them type of guys I liked a lot, you get me? So I'm not saying Canelo's as good as any of those guys, but he can bang and he lets his hands go. So, I do like that still. Other than that, I don't think there's anything else I've missed out. No major stories in boxing. I'm sure if there is, you lot will let me know in the comment section below. So yeah, man, if there is, let me know. This is Hatman. I'm out.